All right, good morning, Trans. I can take my time because it always cuts off when I do it. So good morning, transformation team. Do the fake start and the real start. Welcome to our Friday Transformation Talk. We have a special guest with us today, Barry Hensch.
Well, I don't know about special, but
Barry, you're special to us. And a guest, frequent guest that everyone loves. So I'll turn it over to Wellington, though, to start with some updates.
Thank you very much, Calvin. I do have a few quick announcements just before we get into conversation with Barry, but we've been talking about squad swagger, and we have some winners to announce, so we're actually very, very pleased. So I want to announce Katie Murray, Mark Hadubiak, I want to apologize if I don't got your name perfectly right, Prashant Topawala, and Alex Yo. You guys are the winners. Margining and Covenant Squad were the winners, and so thank you. We're going to be asking them to join us next week, and we're going to talk about some of their learnings, and we'll share more about the Agile Measures survey results that we got feedback from you. So we really appreciate that. Transformation rallies are coming up very quickly. They're actually only a few weeks away. December 4th in Edmonton, December 6th here in Calgary. Please RSVP. We need to know how many numbers we've got so we can plan appropriately, but we are looking forward to bringing the team together and getting on the same page so we can drive forward and getting transformation done. And some great news this week. Sean Ballard sent around an email celebrating the work of the entire team working on biz banking. 8080 is here, and we're working towards 1,000 customers on the platform, and we're all full steam ahead to get that platform done by the end of this fiscal year, which we're very, very excited about. So congratulations, team. I know this team has been working really hard on this, and in fact, I know the leaders in digital, for example, have been certainly concerned. We don't want to burn you out. I'm sure some of you have been putting in the time. We appreciate your hard work. But with that, we've got Barry here because we've done some really great things in tech enablement over the last, well, forever, but over the last few weeks, some really great things have really been launched, and I think to great reception of the business. And I wanted to make sure everybody knew what we were doing. So Barry, I'm passing it to you.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Wellington. Thanks for having me. I think it's, it's always, we always love talking about what we are doing in tech enablement. We sometimes joke that we're in the engine room of transformation. At the same time, we have, there's lots of cool stuff that we are bringing to bear. And I think, one of the biggest changes I think recently has been our focus around one of our key objectives. So of course the transformation strategy is the strategy, but from a TE perspective, one of our big objectives is to be more team member obsessed. So we're kind of borrowing the obsession phrase, more focusing it around team members, and really trying to make sure that team members are better supported in computing issues that they may have, hopefully have better equipment over time. We can't replace everybody's machines right out of the gate, but certainly with our Pixelbook deployments and a bunch of other stuff that's been going on. So in the spirit of being team member obsessed, it's really about trying to get away from I'll call it the finger pointing. While we love, honor, and respect what IBM has done for us and what TELUS Service Desk has done for us, and Longview in terms of mobility support, it was quite fragmented. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to team members around, why do I have to talk to 3 different companies to get my problem resolved? Or they're just pointing fingers at each other, and then we would intervene and obviously get something fixed. But it was a bit of a challenge. And so in the spirit of truly being team member obsessed, and certainly as ATB becomes even more technologically savvy as an organization, and certainly as we become a software development shop and all the rest, these aren't types of services we would typically outsource anymore. Like, it is now part of our core business. As much as certainly we're still a bank, and all the banking products and all of our lines of business are still our core business, but from a transformation standpoint, it's really important that we can support the organization and help to increase the digital adoption, digital advocacy, digital awareness, and then also some of the digital well-being stuff that we could probably talk to you as well. But it's really about, again, being team member obsessed. And I think with the introduction, so just stepping backwards for a minute, back at the end of June, we finished our relationship with IBM on the desk side services side. That's when we started to open the tech shops, so both in campus and at ATB Place. We've had just huge positive reviews, like just the ability to actually finally go somewhere to get a problem addressed or fixed, or even just to see some of the equipment that you can get has been just so much easier for team members.
Yeah.
You know, we'd like to see if we can expand that further, but at this point, we're kind of, you know, those two locations are obviously big central points for us. And then just more recently, just actually last at the end of October, we had our final days with the TELUS service desk, and we made the transition over now to the Tech Gurus as well. So that same team that supports you if you go into a tech shop is now the same team that are answering the phones, answering chats. We've got a dashboard. Over this last couple of weeks, we've probably had 600 or so phone calls and walk-ins and so on. Now, that does not include the thousands of interactions in our chat room at this point, where, you know, team members are just able to ask a simple question or even a complex question and have somebody hopefully help them really quickly. So that transition, and then with the work that we've been doing, Centrify, in terms of now being our single sign-on provider as well as our mobile device management solution, trying to provide I'll call it a unified experience for team members. But, you know, there's been a few bumps because there's all kinds of phones and operating systems, and honestly, the
complexity of our environment.
Well, the BlackBerry UEM stuff was always flaky. I've never liked it, and so it's caused a few issues. At the same time, though, we're working through those. The team is there to respond, and again, we're getting really positive feedback. So, you know, happy to talk more, but I think it's important to just kind of step back and, you know, the why is really, it's you know, we actually expect we're going to be able to deliver our services and actually save some money in the meantime. But it's really about being team member obsessed, so that especially customer facing team members can be customer obsessed. Like, there's nothing worse than fighting with your laptop, waiting 20 minutes to log in, or fighting with a printer, or like all of the things that can happen day to day. So I'm happy to talk about a bunch more.
But, you know,
but that's where I probably
you got it, right? Like, if our customer facing team members don't have, if they're not feeling supported so that they can actually encourage our customers to adopt our digital products and so on, because they're not comfortable themselves, like, how can, with the technology they're equipped with, to show our customers, to demonstrate to our customers? And I totally agree. And, you know, if you look at our contact center, like, we put a lot of energy into making sure that when our customers call in, that they get a pretty good experience, right? Like, I mean, a great experience to all the team members in the CCC. We would never outsource that.
Right.
And in this world, we want our team members to get a great experience. We wouldn't outsource that. So I think it's fantastic that the work of the TE team has done to bring that in. What would be the top 2 or 3 big items that team members have been calling or chatting about so far?
Well, I think, you know, the Centrify transition has been probably a big one for sure, in terms of, well, I can now get into Pulse on my iPad, because of course we supply the security certificates to them. So there's some of those kinds of things that have been big predominant things. I think for us, you know, again, a big mandate in terms of moving to this team member obsession is actually self-service, right? Like, we're hoping that we can actually eliminate the calls and the questions, because it's just so intuitive and so easy. And so things like, you know, our single sign-on provider with Centrify, like, we've changed all of that over. So links are now changed, right? So because you used to connect to MyPath from a link, it's now changed. And so we get a bunch of questions about, well, I can't get to MyPath. Well, actually, if you just go to your Centrify portal, launch it from there, and only ever go there to launch stuff, whether it's Concur, whether it, you know, all of those apps, that's now the place to do it. So there's I'll call it some of those kinds of things that we see a lot of questions on. Certainly, you know, we're still seeing a few things around password resets or account blocks. Again, that's all meant to now happen through Centrify. So if I can, you know, encourage the transformation team and others that might be watching, please read the instructions. I hate to be so blunt, but very often, if
I hate to say I'm one of those people.
I can't tell you how many times, like, well, if you just
they were easy instructions, and they were YouTube videos and stuff too, right?
Yeah, the team is really trying to do a lot to make it easy. You don't follow what we suggest, we can't guarantee a great experience. So
the other one is reboot, then call.
Actually, it's funny you say that, because you know, this notion of computer hygiene. You know, it sounds kind of funny. Why do I have to reboot my computer? And even our, you know, Pixelbooks, even as much as they're really simple, really great tools, it's still a computer. They still mess up from time to time, and very often a simple reboot will solve the issue. Or in the case of the Chrome browser, just doing an occasional clearing of all of the cache and stuff that gets hung up. So we tend to see a lot of those kinds of really simple things. There are, there's, I think now, especially with our move with ServiceNow, sometimes we're getting, I'll call it escalations or check-ins. And we're really working hard. Tammy Ward's team, that in terms of all the gurus, David Fauchon's team in terms of taking over the account management, in terms of creating new accounts and all that stuff. There's been a couple things that have probably fallen through the cracks. Like we're really working hard, and they're working tremendously hard to not have that happen. But we are still seeing some things where, we made this request 10 days ago. Where is it at? Yeah. And so we're really trying to make sure that that's not the case going forward. At the same time, I think we're finding that the volume is still pretty high. Yeah. And we're not exactly sure if this is, I'll call it the regular volume, because we would get metrics from IBM and TELUS and Longview. We honestly, metrics can be manipulated, and so it was always hard to say what kinds of things we would see in a given week. But we're not quite sure if this is the true level, if this is just pent up demand at this point because we've got a new opportunity.
And if the experience wasn't great before, you may not have asked, but now if the experience is better, you might be more likely to ask. Like, it could be good news if we see volume going.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we're hoping is, again, I can't tell you how many times I talk to folks and I'm not even gonna bother to call the help desk because they can't actually help me. Well,
they can't help you desk.
Yeah, they can't help you desk. Obviously not something we want. And
we don't have that anymore.
The team we have, although relatively new, like I think that's what's most interesting from my perspective is most of these team members are brand new to ATP. There are a few that have been around in different roles that have come together and have raised the bar so tremendously far in such a short period of time that as they get more and more experience, because there's the odd question that stumps them right now, because they haven't heard of a particular system, and I'll pick on WMF only because we were joking about it earlier for the AppBiz CRM system.
Because we had an outage, and because that's why we're moving to Salesforce to get off that old piece of whatever.
Yeah, there's some colorful language we could use.
You don't have a sensor button.
Yeah, that's right. We might have problems if we go there. But so there's some of these kinds of things where somebody will ask a question and they'll go, "Oh, we have no idea."
Right.
But we'll go find out. And so I think it's really about a bit of, I'll call it leniency in terms of the gurus as they learn. But I think at the same time they've come such a long way. And I think again the whole spirit of this is to further provide self-service options and then have the gurus there to support the more complex things. Like if we can get by things like Centrify and why is my link broken and clearing out my Chrome browser cache or restarting my computer, these kinds of things, so that they can actually help with some of those bigger things. And we know that there are tons, like we still know that there are probably hundreds, if not thousands of old laptops in the organization. Like these are, 4, 5, 6-year-old machines where, they haven't been replaced and they need to be replaced. We're trying to make sure we set aside enough funding to do that. But at the same time, if we can, with the work that's going on in digital and CX and other parts of transformation with respect to making an iPad a reality, like we may not even need laptops for branch-based tool, and that's exactly where we want to be. Because I would say that one of our big focuses is try to get everyone to a single or as few devices as possible. Nothing worse than carrying 4 different things with you, including cell phones and all the rest of it. So. It really is about trying to get to self-service, and so that the gurus are there to help with more complex things. At the same time, we don't. If team members are having issues, we just want them to try again.
Right on.
Have them contact us. I'm sure they're going to have a great experience. And if we don't, we want to hear about it as well.
Yeah. Right on.
Okay, lots of comments and questions. Lots of chat. Lots of thumbs up for people's experiences with the tech gurus and the tech shops. Tyler had a question around, is there any chance of Google hooking up ATB team members with a Pixelbook purchase plan?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
It's actually a really good question. So we've actually approached that question a couple of times. Google is, again, slightly immature when it comes to the enterprise with respect to programs like this. Like, companies like Microsoft or others are more seeded in terms of these kinds of things. So, it's something that they're certainly aware of in terms of our interest on. We haven't been able to land on exactly what that could look like or what that could offer, but just know that whether it's Pixel books, Pixel phones, now the Slate, you know, there, or even Google Homes or, you know, Google Wi-Fi's or other accessories, we are looking to see if we can provide a call it a discount for team members to purchase on their own. So yeah, no, we'll once we see something come to fruition, we'll certainly let everyone know.
And if you join the Interbranch Employee Club, a lot of people don't know about this, but I hope this is still the case as I put this out there. But you do have a one-time purchase on a computer or hardware like that, and you get 20% back. So 10% each year, which is way bigger than you're going to get on a discount from Google because they have the margin.
So that's, I think, a great plug. To the point is we're trying to encourage all team members to have like the technology they need to, you know,
work from home.
Yeah. No.
Work from hockey arenas.
Your kids recycle.
Calvin, go back to your hammock. That was funny.
Tanya Kruger actually has a great question around, is there a way to set up like an auto clear of our cache?
So yeah, again, great question. Not specifically, like there's, you know, certainly there are ways where stuff like that could be scheduled, but because of the way Chrome security works, you know, those types of features typically don't exist. So it's one of those things, even if you stick it in your calendar, you know, once a week or even every couple of weeks, it's again, very often if you're having some sort of problem where it's not connecting, particularly when you try to, if you are working remotely, you log in through the VPN, and then you try to go to Inside ATB, for example, although we will solve that by making some new Inside ATB externally facing at some point here, where you don't need to do that. But if you all of a sudden try to get to that URL and it brings up a, you know, can't find page or some other 404 message, very often a clearing of the cache, disconnecting from the VPN, trying again, will almost always solve it. But yeah, we would love to find some automated techniques there. And if we, you know, in the spirit of trying to advance to even make the experience better, we will do those things as we can. But that's a bit, you know, out of our control at the moment.
Tio has a question in the chat. Has there been any progress on approving a password manager?
So in terms of a password vault, I suspect is, so there, you know, many of us, including myself, you know, use products like LastPass or others. So yeah, it's certainly something that Keith Stewart and I have been talking about quite diligently. We're actually, it's interesting. Passwords in general are, again, one of our biggest trouble points, weak points. So if team members have weak passwords or passwords that are easy to crack, even though we require complex passwords in terms of upper and lowercase and digit numerals and, you know, a certain number of characters and so on, you know, if you use an English word and just replace some letters with special, like those are actually fairly easy to crack. And so there's actually a bunch of research in the industry about passwords being pretty ineffective as a way to protect. Now, at the same time, we
don't have anything better yet.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know,
don't opt out.
Exactly. But what's even worse is when you use a password multiple times at different sites. And so, you know, you certainly wouldn't want your ATB Online password to be the same as your ATB network password. Like that would be like very bad practice. So we talk about hygiene. Please don't, like, make sure you have different passwords in some of these things. But that's where a password manager or password vault solution becomes important. So you just want to make sure that at that point you don't give away your master password for the vault, because then you're doomed. And so anyway, all that to say is, yes, we are trying to see how we could introduce password vaults without causing, I'll call it the unintended consequences of introducing a password vault. So nothing imminent, but it's certainly a conversation that we are having. And again, we're looking at what passwords really mean to the organization and how we might support, especially with biometrics and, you know, these kinds of things coming.
You know, we do, many of you would be aware, we do regular pen testing against the organization, penetration testing. Basically, we hire an external firm to come in and attack us to see where our weak spots are. And And we feel pretty confident about most of our defenses, but I will share that one consistent thing that comes back every time they do it is they are able to crack some of our passwords.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if we have access to systems and somebody can crack our passwords, that means they can get into our system. So we are the weakest link in all the security of ATB. And so if there's a message to walk around with is, as much as the passwords are annoying, they are tedious, frustrating, we can't not take them seriously. We have, when we don't, I guess, do our job and having, a complex password that we change on a regular basis and so on, we are actually introducing vulnerabilities to the entire organization. So
yeah, well, and I think that's going back earlier to some of the questions we are seeing to the gurus is, well, why am I having to enter my password and centrify so much more?
Mhm.
Well, part of that's because we are trying to make sure that you are who you say you are,
right,
and that you're not
somebody just didn't pull your PC off or your
Pixel book or whatever.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. And so that's actually an expected behavior. Or with your phone or your tablet, or even though you may have a biometric set, it's still going to ask you fairly frequently for you to confirm, because that password is an important second factor to doing it. And then with multi-factor authentication techniques, it also helps to prevent bad things. But yeah, certainly, I don't know what the actual stats are. Keith or his team could certainly provide it, but historically, like more than 85% of ATB team members, we can crack their password.
So what do we do about that? Actually, there was two comments in here. Was it your two passwords specifically?
Yeah, okay.
I know for sure. Well,
mine is BA.
Fall at 2018. Soon to be winter.
Exactly. Yeah. The question is the exclamation part after winter?
But do we tell people when their passwords
we don't typically tell them today. And then again, I'm kind of speaking on behalf of Keith, and so this is definitely something more in his space. I suspect we might start to escalate, but I think it's like even some of the phishing tests we do. So phishing being that technique where you get an email in and there's a link in there and it looks really, quite, in fact, my youngest son just got burnt by this. It's kind of a life lesson that he's now learning, but and then all of a sudden you enter your credentials. Those are it's all about just having that awareness, right? And coming up. And so one of the best, techniques for creating passwords in my mind is, your favorite movie quote. Take the first letter out of each word in that quote, so that, and then use that, and then some variation. Because then it's not, because as soon as you use something that looks like a dictionary word, you're done. Like they are, even though you may be replacing it with special characters or numbers, those are common, the machines that's really easy for a machine to crack.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a completely jumbled, even though it has meaning to you because it's your favorite movie quote or the first line of a book you love. And again, you've taken the first letters or the second letters of those words to come up with something. So it's really about being creative around how your password is managed. And then honestly, it's about not repeating. Like even though we don't let you use the last 12, people tend to have 12. They change them, and that's usually a bad practice. So
what's your favorite book?
God.
Well, there is actually I think was it Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel recently? They did a social engineering attack on passwords. It's been on LinkedIn quite a bit recently, where they were asking people about their passwords, and they were asking questions exactly like that. And it's funny how people will just tell them, and then all of a sudden, so your password is X. Holy crap! I got to go change my password. Which clearly means it was too simple in the first place. So yeah,
people like PIN numbers, right, which are a little more primitive now. They use it the same number for everything. Like my friend told me,
or never change it.
His door code one, and I'm like, "Oh, is that your bank card one?" And he's like, "Oh no, I gotta change my bank card."
Yeah, no, the same.
He doesn't trust you, obviously.
Yeah. Same is certainly true for your PIN card, and that's why we love Apple Pay, Google Pay, Tap in general, because of course it takes that away. It's an encrypted. It's obviously the most secure way of.
What's 2FA? A couple comments around 2FA.
Sorry, that's my
two-factor authentication.
Two-factor authentication.
You didn't say it, I don't think, but it came up a couple times.
Yeah, it's also referred to as multi-factor authentication. So this is typically the premise of something like your password, and something you have, which is like 6-digit code that's changing, or a biometric, or scanning a device or a card or whatever. So that's the two factor is something you know and something you have, which can prove that you are who you say you are. Because that's, again, ultimately our weakest link in terms of security is typically the insider threat, as we would say, is the most real threat to any organization.
A question from Neil. We have nailed productivity with G Suite, service with this new model. So what's the next big thing for TE?
That's actually going to be my closing question for Barry. Yeah, that's right.
Well, this small little thing like move into the cloud, I think is probably something we'll be working on for some time. So, but if I go back to the team member service side, it's really about, further looking for ways that we can ease that experience for team members. For is becoming mobile. We think about that obviously from a digital interaction mobile device perspective, but I think we've also learned that people want the expertise to be able to go to them, right? Why should I have to go to a branch to talk to an investment advisor? Have that investment advisor go to them. So I think it's really going to be more about that. But on the flip side, yeah, there's a ton more going on in technology enablement and the move to the cloud. We've talked about it a little bit in transformation talks. Is really our focus area right at the moment, and it's while also trying to make sure we don't break the bank in the process. So in other words, trying to run the existing systems, make sure again, coming back to the story, make their time richer is a key phrase for me as a customer. That's my banking just works, and having the banking systems run, and frankly all of the rest of the systems while we make these massive changes is incredibly important.
Yeah, totally agree. Any other last questions?
But I believe we do.
Yeah, we do have certainly what we call enhanced security as part of HB Online, which is SMS text messaging at this stage. I know that I suspect that CX teams and the digital teams will look at next iterations of that, but certainly, as an ATB customer, it's you definitely want to be able to set up the enhanced security on your account so that you're less vulnerable to a fraudster getting your credentials and doing something, or having it massively impact you.
Yeah.
So certainly, yeah, that does exist today.
Just saw a story on that too, how they're getting smarter and smarter criminals. Like, I don't know if you saw the story where they were dealing with a mobility network and eventually got enough information to get a new SIM card and like hack in. It was like they're persistent.
Well, that's right, and I think I think these types of bad actors, as we would call them, they're really smart, they're really ingenious, and they're patient. Excuse me. In other words, they're willing to try a bunch of things until they find the one thing that actually works to get them what they're.
So what do they do? They fail continuously until they learn enough to make.
Yeah, right. They're embracing the F word. Nice parallel there.
That's
Yeah, well,
we're good actors. That's the difference.
Well, exactly.
We're great actors.
Is it Thomas Edison that said, I failed 1,000 times creating the light bulb, or I just found 1,000 ways it didn't work.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Or whatever. So yeah, similar idea for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of, the world's a scary place, and that's why we put a lot of emphasis on cybersecurity and information security. And while those feel quite restrictive, it also, if we don't do these things, we cause all kinds of other problems. And frankly, the potential reputational damage for ATB is massive if we were to have a breach because somebody had a bad, really easy password to crack and they had system level privileges, like all those sorts of issues, right?
Well, with the minute left, just we'll bring it to a close, but just want to share, like, I'm so proud of the entire tech enablement team who've, I think, transformed how ATBers see IT. In so many traditional companies, IT is often seen as the department that says no and why things can't happen and so on. And we've completely changed the perception of tech enablement, formerly IT, across ATB. And everywhere I go, I'm getting great feedback around how we're seeing things get better. And at the end of the day, if we want to be an organization that's going to be successful in the future, we need 5,000 tech-enabled people. And I'm so proud of the team who is making that happen. So thank you, Barry, for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
And for everyone, have a great long weekend. I do hope you get some downtime The 80/80 squad, you guys have been burning the midnight oil. Please take some time off this weekend. Have a great weekend, everyone.